Welcome to The Explainer. Look, being a victim of a violent crime is an incredibly traumatic experience. But if this has happened to you in Scotland, there is a support system you need to know about. Today, we're going to break down exactly what the Criminal Injuries Compensation Scheme is.
Beyond the physical and the psychological trauma, there's this other, just gut-wrenching reality that so many victims face. The person who did this might never be caught. And even if they are, what if they have no money, no way to actually pay for the harm they've caused? It really can feel like you've hit a total dead end.
So, is there another way? Well, for a lot of people, yes, there is. When all those usual legal paths for getting compensation are just blocked, there is another option. And that is exactly what we're going to get into today. And that predicament, that feeling of frustration and being stuck financially, that is the whole reason the Criminal Injuries Compensation Scheme exists. It was literally designed to step in when the person responsible just can't be held accountable with money. All right, so let's really dive in. What is CICA? Well, it stands for the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority. And a good way to think about it is this. It's the government, the state, basically, stepping up and acknowledging what happened to an innocent victim and offering some real, tangible financial support.
Now, this part is super important to get your head around. This is not a lawsuit. You're not suing your attacker. And it's not like making an insurance claim. What it is a formal application you make to a government body, and that same body covers all of Great Britain, so Scotland, England, and Wales.
And you can see here just how different this whole thing is from a typical court case. It's funded by the state, right? And it works off a fixed price list. They call it a tariff for specific injuries. But check out those last 2 points, because they are game changers. You don't need a conviction. The attacker doesn't even have to be identified. That just opens the door for so many victims who would otherwise have absolutely no options. Okay, so this all leads to the big question, right? Are you eligible? Who can actually apply for this? And I have to be clear here, the rules are really strict, so you've got to understand them. Think of these as the 4 main pillars of any CICK claim. First, your injury has to be from a crime of violence. Second, it had to happen in Great Britain. But it's those last 2, that's where a lot of people run into trouble. You have to report it to the police as soon as you reasonably can. And then you have to cooperate fully with whatever investigation follows. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because it's about your conduct. See, in a normal civil claim, if you were maybe partly to blame, your compensation might get reduced a little bit, proportionally. But with CICA, it's a whole different ballgame. If they think you provoked the attacker or that it was a mutual fight, they can slash your award by a huge amount or just refuse it completely. The bar is just so much higher. And, well, here we get to one of the most controversial parts of the whole scheme. CICA will actually look into your criminal record. If you have what are called unspent convictions, they have the power to cut your award or even refuse to pay you anything at all. And as you can imagine, a lot of people argue that this just isn't fair, that it's punishing victims for something in their past. Okay, please, listen up, because this one is a biggie. There is a 2-year time limit. You have to apply within 2 years of the incident, and they are super strict about this. Yes, there are some very rare exceptions, like if you were a child when it happened, but honestly, you just can't count on that. The clock really is ticking from day one.
So let's say you are eligible. What kind of money are we actually talking about?
Well, the scheme breaks it down into a few different pots. And if you have more than one injury, the math gets a little weird. It's not as simple as adding them all up. You get 100% of the value for your most serious injury. But then, for the second most serious, you only get 30% of its value. And for the third, just 15%. And after that, nothing extra. Think of this as the minimum entry fee in a way. Your injuries have to be serious enough that they'd get at least a £1,000 award from that CICA price list. If they add it all up and it comes to less than $1,000, then unfortunately the scheme just doesn't cover it. And on the other end of the scale, this is the maximum you can get just for the injury itself. The tariff goes all the way up to £250,000, but that's reserved for the absolute most catastrophic, life-changing injuries. Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. Your final payout is basically made up of 3 things. You've got the main tariff award for your injury. Then you've got loss of earnings, but here's the catch. That only kicks in after 28 weeks off work, and even then it's capped. And lastly, there's special expenses, which can cover things like private medical treatment if you can't get it on the NHS.
All right, so you've decided to go for it. What happens next? What does the process actually feel like? Let's walk through the journey.
So it all starts with you filling out the application online. Once that's in, CICA kicks into gear and starts their investigation. They'll be gathering records from the police, from your doctors. But the main thing I need you to take away from this is be prepared to wait. This is not a fast process. It's totally normal for it to take many, many months, sometimes even more than a year, before you hear anything back with a final decision. Okay, we've gone through a lot. So knowing all this, what are the actual, practical first steps you should take if you've been a victim and you're even thinking about making a claim? Here are 5 things you can do right now. Number 1, and this is non-negotiable, report it to the police as soon as you can. Number 2, go and see a doctor. Get every single injury down on record. 3, save everything. Photos, torn clothing, text messages, any evidence you have. 4, and while this isn't mandatory, I'd strongly recommend it. Talk to a solicitor who specializes in this stuff. And finally, number 5, the actual application is all done online on the gov.uk website. Look, at the end of the day, no amount of money can ever erase what happened. We all know that. But the CICA scheme, it can be about more than just the cash. It's a formal acknowledgement from the state. It's them saying what happened to you was wrong and you deserve support. And for some people, just getting that validation, that official recognition, could that be an important first step on a very long road to recovery?